Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve Burr with Arlington County, and we are excited to share our CPACE webinar with you all. So we'll give it another minute or so for additional folks to trickle in and then go ahead and get started from there. A couple quick housekeeping notes is that everyone has been muted. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to utilize the chat for that. We'll have some time at the end of the presentation for to answer any questions and we'll also be monitoring the chat for any questions you may layer in there. And then additionally, we are recording this meeting for future use. And so just wanted to let folks know that we will be recording. So with that, we'll give it another 30 seconds or so for any additional folks to log in, and we will go from there. So thanks all. All right, so without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. This is for Arlington County's Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy, or CPACE program, where we're going to talk about the county's program, as well as recent updates to the program that have been incorporated to make the program a bit more market-friendly. As I noted, we will be recording, and we'll also be answering any questions you have in the chat. So with that, we'll dive into today's presenters. And so first to present is myself. I'm Steve Burr, and I'm on the county's Department of Environmental Services AIRE team, the Arlington Initiative to Rethink Energy, which is part of the Office of Sustainability and Environmental Management. The AIRE team is focused on all things related to energy and climate program implementation for both community-facing programs, which the CPACE program is part of, as well as county operations, all in an effort to meet our county-wide goals through our community energy plan, including our carbon neutrality goal by 2050. Also joining us today is Brian McCarter, who is the county's implementation contractor. And so I'll pass it over to Brian for his introduction.
Yep, Brian McCarter, CEO of Sustainable Real Estate Solutions. And as Steve has noted, I am part of the team that administers the program on behalf of Steve's team at the county.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that introduction, Brian. So we're going to hit on 3 core items today. We're first going to talk about the Arlington CPACE program overall, just give some information and history about that. Second, really the meat of the presentation today is we're going to focus on the recent CPACE program updates. So there have been a couple ordinance updates, and so excited to share some of the updates to the program. And then lastly, just elevate some of the additional resources we have for the program, including a website, the program guide, and other program collateral related to the CPACE program in general. So with that, we are giving just a little bit of additional information about the program and sort of what the program is. So the purpose today is really talking about the CPACE program and how it helps to promote energy efficiency, renewable energy, and resiliency improvements in commercial buildings throughout the county. The county recently completed its greenhouse gas emissions inventory for calendar year 2023, and the commercial building sector was the largest sector of greenhouse gas inventory. So it's a huge opportunity for greenhouse gas savings, particularly in energy efficiency. Additionally, there are other goals in the community energy plan, which is the county's comprehensive plan element focused on energy and climate to really increase energy and operational efficiency in buildings. And by 2050 to have total building energy uses 38% below 2016 levels, and that's accounting for growth in population, growth in density, and new buildings. And so a lot of goals related around the commercial building sector as well. The program is structured in an open market format, and so that really provides the opportunity and flexibility for developers and building owners to work with a private lending market and see what opportunities both work best from a building upgrades perspective, as well as what lending tools are available, and really provide that flexibility for the program. The program is sponsored by Arlington County, and it was established in 2017, and the program launched in 2018. So we're excited to share those updates related to those to the updates and sort of the Arlington sponsoring the program. And then lastly, we have the third-party administrator, as Brian mentioned, who helps implement the program going forward. The county's worked with Brian and the SRS team for quite a while. And then lastly, at the bottom is a link to the program website. So with that, we can move on to the next slide and just providing some additional background about the CPACE program. And so this is a timeline and some historical elements of CPACE. So in 2015, the Commonwealth of Virginia enacted the CPACE legislation that allowed the authority for local governments to set up a CPACE ordinance, which Arlington did in late 2017 for a launch of the program in 2018. In 2018, as I mentioned, the CPACE program was launched. It was the first community in Virginia to launch a CPACE program, and we've been working with SRS as our implementation contractor since then to help connect private capital with to support energy efficiency programs. The program has from 2018 to currently has had 2 projects close, and so in 2024 and a little bit before, we were looking at how we can make the program a little more market friendly, integrate best practices and some enhancements to the ordinance, which we worked through and got board approval in 2024, as well as some additional state enabling legislation in 2025 from the General Assembly session that was also subsequently passed, all culminating now to where we have an updated program guide and the new ordinance to support the new tool to be market friendly. So with that, we're going to dive into a lot of the updates that were made in CPACE, as well as some more general information on CPACE. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brian to cover these next sections. So over to you, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And I know we have a few attendees that are relatively new to CPACE, so I thought we'd start with just a few foundational points about PACE and how it's structured and the key benefits. So for that, commercial property assessed clean energy programs are structured as public-private partnerships. As Steve's just outlined, the county's role on the public side. The private side would be the private property owners and private capital providers that are bringing funding to these projects. And in short, CPACE provides commercial property owners with a new way to finance eligible improvements. And that new way is via the assessment-based mechanism, which brings some unique benefits that we'll explore here a little further. And the logic of bringing that to the commercial building owners is that these projects are providing a public good. And by public good, we mean improving, as Steve was saying, relative to the county's goals, energy reduction goals, emission reduction goals, bringing energy efficiency benefits and environmental benefits to both the buildings themselves and the broader community, and installing new renewable energy into these buildings. And CPACE can be used for both retrofits to existing buildings as well as in a new construction project scenario. Along with Steve had referenced the new ordinance, which was passed in November of 2024. And in addition to energy efficiency and renewable energy, which was defined as eligible improvements in the initial ordinance, that definition was expanded and now includes water efficiency. So these would be water remediation or conservation measures that are installed in commercial buildings are now eligible, as well as a suite of resiliency improvements. And these would be measures that help to increase the structure's resiliency to things like wind and fire risk, mitigation of flash flooding, improve stormwater management systems, the building's ability to withstand electrical outages by way of installing microgrid system or energy storage systems. Also a new component is environmental remediation, or the helping to fund the cleanup of environmental contamination. And with the increasing popularity of EVs, is to build out further electrical vehicle infrastructure with commercial building development. So I'll highlight a couple of the key benefits that CPACE brings. And on the retrofit side for existing buildings, owners can finance up to 100% of the eligible improvements costs, and that includes both the hard cost of the equipment and the labor to install that equipment, and soft costs, meaning transaction costs such as legal cost, project technical development costs, things of that nature. The other principal benefit for CPACE financing is how long-term the financing can be. And in PACE projects, the maximum term of financing is set to be commensurate with the life of the improvements that are being installed. And HVAC would be the most frequent project driver in existing buildings, and typically those systems are rated for 15 to 20 years. So it's not uncommon for retrofit projects to have that length of financing up to 15 to 20 years. And of course, spreading the repayment over that longer term has is advantageous to the commercial building owner and minimizes the impact to their net operating income, which is typically a keen focus. And that stands in comparison, let's say, to a traditional commercial bank loan that may be 5 to 7 year term, right? So then on the new construction side, developers are typically using CPACE to reduce the amount of equity that they have to contribute directly to the project, or to avoid other high cost financing, mezzanine financing in particular, which is typically a high cost of capital. And bringing CPACE into their new build capital stack typically will have the effect of lowering the weighted average cost of capital and fill the gaps that otherwise would prohibit projects like this from advancing. And this is an area that's become particularly more popular when the post-pandemic and the run-up in interest rates, many of the construction lenders pulled back on the amount of funds that they were willing to apply to new build projects, and PACE has been an effective solution to come into that problem and offer the benefits that it does. In terms of the maximum financing amount for new construction projects, as opposed to the sort of line item basis of eligible improvements in existing buildings, new construction, the PACE financing limit is set up to 30% of the total eligible construction cost of the project. So there you can think of the vertical construction cost, so excluding the cost to acquire the property, but all the building related costs are eligible. And that eligibility has to meet, or the as designed building, I should say, the design of that building has to exceed the 2021 Virginia Energy Conservation Code. So that's the energy performance of that as designed building needs to exceed the energy code by a minimum of 5%. And the term of the new construction financing can go out up to 30 years. And back to my point about the assessment-based nature of CPACE financing, that financing is secured through a voluntary and assignable assessment and assessment lien that's recorded against the owner's property. And the owner repays the CPACE obligation back directly to the CPACE lender. And the property owner enters into two principal agreements. First is the program agreement. That is a new document that we'll talk a little bit in more detail in a moment, but that's a three-party agreement between the county, the property owner, and the CPACE lender, and that really spells out the key responsibilities of each of those parties in the context of a CPACE project financing. The financing agreement is a two-party agreement that's between the property owner and the CPACE lender, and that spells out the key terms of the financing and repayment obligations of the property owner, again, directly to the lender. A couple other key benefits or unique benefits of CPACE financing is its transferability upon sale. So unlike in a typical commercial mortgage scenario, at the time a property is sold, any outstanding balance comes due on the commercial mortgage loan. That's not the case in CPACE. Rather, that repayment obligation can transfer to the new owner. And in that respect, it behaves similar to a county special improvement district assessment. So think of, say a water district or sewer district assessment that's placed on a commercial building. At the time the property is sold, that obligation rolls to the new owner. And that's also an important benefit, particularly for a building owner that might not be thinking that their hold period is that far into the future. Non-accelerating, that also refers to the point I was just making, that at the time of a sale or frankly a default on a loan, typically in a commercial mortgage, that full outstanding balance would come due. And again, that's not the case with CPACE. It's non-accelerating, meaning in a default scenario, only the amount of CPACE repayment obligation in arrears would come due, and that's a comforting provision, particularly to existing mortgage holders that, in the case of CPACE financing, have to provide written consent for the property owner to take on this additional form of debt. So with that, that's a brief, sort of the foundational structure and benefits of PACE. But as Steve mentioned, we wanted to do most of the focus in today's discussion on the recent updates to the program. So we'll summarize those for you now. I noted earlier, one of the key updates in the November 2024 ordinance was the expansion of the eligible improvement definition beyond the core energy efficiency and renewable energy to include the resiliency measures, water efficiency, energy storage, environmental remediation, and the EV infrastructure. So that opens up the types of projects that PACE can now support fairly substantially. And this has been a trend that's been happening in the industry over, I'd say, the past 4 years, and many states have begun to adopt these, and projects are now beginning to be developed around these key themes. As it relates to the project technical standards or technical requirements, a few things to share there. The existing building retrofit projects, on energy efficiency projects, the minimum level of analysis or energy audit is the ASHRAE level 1 standard, which would include estimated savings for each of the proposed eligible improvements. And those estimates will need to be provided by a registered contractor. So the program maintains registered contractors, registered lenders, and so forth. And that program is being expanded as we speak. On the solar PV side, similar, sort of the equivalent to the energy audit for solar PV is a renewable energy feasibility study, and that would include the estimated generation of the proposed system size and other technical performance specifications, and that's to be provided by the registered solar PV contractor. On their resiliency projects, given the breadth of those categories that we just reviewed, the requirement there is for a feasibility study to be submitted by a licensed professional that's relevant in that particular field. As for instance, let's say the environmental remediation area, we typically would be looking for an environmental consultant, phase 2 environmental site assessment that would speak to defining the contamination and the remediation strategies. On new construction, as we mentioned, a project is eligible if the as-designed building exceeds the Virginia Energy Conservation Code version 2021 by at least 5%. So the supporting documentation necessary to support eligibility here is an energy model that would first model code compliant performance, and then the as designed building and what the exceedance above code is. And those of you that are familiar with that energy modeling, eQuest or Energy Pro or Train Traces modeling tools are all sort of standard or popular modeling tools that the technical community uses to facilitate that analysis. Also, I mentioned the determination of the total eligible construction cost, so the vertical building construction cost. So we look for the cost by trade, major trade component, which is typically how the developers are, developing their cost schedules, and so we're pretty consistent with standard practice there. And the real key upgrade from the prior ordinance and program guide was increasing the maximum eligible CPACE financing amount in these new construction projects from the prior level of 20% to 30% of the TECC in these recent updates. So again, that provides back to my earlier point about the financing plan or capital stack plan that developers are challenged to fill these days. This is an opportunity for PACE to be a more prominent piece in those financing plans. In addition, and sort of related, there was a number of new documents or updated documents that were designed to conform with the new ordinance and the program guide. So I'll touch on a few of those. First off is the program agreement. Again, that's the three party agreement between the county, the property owner, and the CPACE lender. Again, that really sets forth the key terms and conditions and responsibilities. This was one of the areas that I would say was in the county's direct response to feedback on the prior ordinance and program guide, where particularly the CPACE specialty capital provider community was looking for more detail on the role and the responsibilities of the county to be documented. And that was one of the reasons and the feedback that we got in the development of this program agreement. So that is now in place. I should note all these documents, if you'd like to review them with a closer level of detail, they're all hosted on the program website's resources page and can all be downloaded in a template Word document form. The certificate of levy and lien of special assessment. This was a new form that was created also from similar feedback from the lender community. Because of the capital provider direct billing and collection structure of the program, it makes sense to also authorize the lender to be the party to record the assessment lien on behalf of the county, at the county land records and recorder's office. And again, the lenders were looking for a little more documentation to provide that authorization. And so this is an updated form that does just that and meets that need as expressed by the capital provider community. And then finally, the assignment form. This is the form that facilitates the assignment of the assessment lien to the lender following the recording in the county land records. That typically the execution of that assignment is typically the trigger event for the lender to disperse the funds to the property owner as agreed to in their financing agreement. So all of those are new or updated. Also, we developed a updated financing agreement template Again, the key point here is in the financing agreement, the county is not a direct party to that agreement. Rather, it's a two-party agreement formed between the property owner and the lender. And that's, of course, those two parties are free to negotiate the terms and conditions of that financing while conforming to the Arlington County ordinance and the state enabling legislation. And the template is designed to do just that, right? The mortgage holder consent form, this was updated. Principally, this was just to conform with the new ordinance and the updated state enabling legislation, but not much change beyond those references. The other key clarification that the lender community was looking for is a clearer documentation that the lender is authorized and responsible for the assessment, billing, collections, and also the enforcement in the case of a delinquency or a default, and that enforcement action would be modeled in the same manner that a property tax lien is enforced in the county and the state. And so that is now in place as well. So several of these updates, those of you from the lending side, were in direct response to lender feedback over the past couple of years, and we developed a working group of lenders to workshop some of these solutions that ended up in these final forms. Also introduced, which was a new item, is retroactive financing. So it's now the case that project applications that are submitted within 2 years of the county's issuance of a certificate of occupancy are now eligible for retroactive CPACE financing. And again, that's new. Retroactive financing was not eligible under the prior ordinance. Also, the prior ordinance, frankly, had a bit of a arbitrary maximum loan amount limit, which was previously set for $50 million. That maximum loan amount limit has been eliminated. So there's now no maximum amount. Considering, however, as I noted earlier, in new construction projects, right, according to that formula we spoke of a moment ago, up to 30% of the total eligible construction cost in effect sets a maximum loan limit, but that's project by project, and there's no longer an arbitrary $50 million max. The minimum loan amount remains at $60,000. So that few comments about the website. You have the address here. In addition to those forms that I was just speaking of, either the new or updated, they're all hosted on the website. The November 2024 CPACE ordinance that was adopted is on the website, as well as that triggered a series of updates to the program guide, which was approved by the county manager in July of 2025, and it's now available on the website as well. So with that, we will welcome any questions or comments that you have on that content or other for that matter.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Steve. It looks like there was a question in the chat from Joan. I believe it was one of your earlier slides, Brian, but it was how would electrification projects fit in?
Sure. Electrification would fall into the energy efficiency category, at least as it relates to existing building. So let me go back to that. So in a scenario with existing building, meaning a building owner that's retrofitting the building, coming off of natural gas-fired space heating system to an all-electric, let's say a heat pump-driven system, that would fall into the 100% of those. Was that somewhere? Hang on. Yep, there we go. 100% of that eligible upgrade, hard and soft costs, would be available. Heat pumps are typically rated for 15, maybe 18-year useful life term, and so that would be eligible at 100% in a building retrofit scenario. New buildings that are using all electric heat pumps per se, again, they would just fall into this, up to 30% of the total eligible construction cost. Frankly, they would, buildings using all electric heating systems, generally speaking, would comfortably exceed the 5% exceedance of code. Hopefully that addressed that question.
Great. Yeah, and feel free to add more questions into the chat to our attendees. It looks like Josh Olson just asked, in a situation with a ground lease, can the C-PACE loan be on the leasehold as opposed to being on the land?
Yep. Insightful question. The answer is yes. And generally, the maximum term of C-PACE financing has to be less than the remaining term on the ground lease. But the the ground lease holder, provided they have permission of the property owner, can take advantage of all these benefits that we just described of C-PACE financing, no different than the property owner directly.
Great, thank you. Looking at the chat, it doesn't look like there are any more questions.
Okay, I'll flash just quickly. This is on the deck, which will be made available. The website is arlington-pace.us, and I noted earlier, on the resources tab of that website, you'll see there's a bunch of program documents. Many that we just spoke of are under this program financing and legal document category, and are all here, including the recently updated ordinance and enabling legislation, and they can be downloaded right from the website.
Great. Thanks so much for that reminder, Brian. It looks like about all the resources that we have, and then also trying to through recordings like this and webinars also spread the word about the updates of the program. So looking forward to building that out. There was also an additional question in the chat. Do participants get access to better financial terms? So did you want to kick off that response, Brian?
Sure. Better financial terms, meaning better than typical commercial loan? Is that the context of the question?
It didn't specify, but that was my assumption. So
I see. So maybe seeking interest rate. Typically, our experience with the C-PACE capital providers is they typically will set their interest rate based on a spread above 10-year U.S. Treasuries. I'd say 350 to 450 basis points is typical of what we would see. We closed a project in the state of Nevada this week that the interest rate was approximately 7.5%. So that that does have to do with the strength of borrower credit and so forth, which is factored in as well. But that would probably be indicative of today's terms. And so it's the combination of, I would say, competitive interest rates. And in many cases, frankly, the property owner is equally, if not more, focused on the benefits, like in a retrofit of 100% financing eligibility. As again, if you benchmark that against a commercial loan, not only would the commercial loan term be much shorter, again, say 5 to 7 years, but typically would require an owner contribution of something on the order of 20%, right? So that ability to do a retrofit transaction at no out-of-pocket cost is typically attractive to a building owner. And as I noted earlier, most of the building owners are keen to understand what's the impact to the building's annual net operating income, and spreading the repayment across a longer term is helpful to achieve that goal of minimized impact to the operating income.
Great, thanks for that thorough response, Brian. And another question was related to the volume of CPACE loans completed in Arlington since program inception. How many lenders have made loans through the program? I know that there's been two CPACE loans in the county, and Brian, I'm not sure if they were from the same lender or not, but any additional information would be appreciated.
No, they actually were from two different lenders. One was a community bank and one was a CPACE specialty capital provider. So that's been our history to date. I mean, frankly, as I was alluding to in some of my comments about the updated form, either new forms or updated forms, some of the specialty PACE capital provider industry was reluctant to lend on projects in Arlington County under the old ordinance because of some of the gray areas that I spoke to. And that was the reason we developed a working group of several of those lenders and developed the new components to the ordinance and these related forms. So our anticipation is that those challenges have now been solved, and particularly some of these larger new construction projects that we're seeing across the industry the past couple of years can begin to develop here in Arlington.
Great, thanks so much for that additional detail.
And I should add, Steve, all lenders that have an interest in adopting CPACE are eligible to do so, whether that would be a traditional bank, community bank, regional bank, credit. We've had in other markets, credit unions, CDFIs are emerging in this space as well. And so it's really designed, as Steve mentioned earlier, the notion of an open market structure. So that is certainly in play, and any lender that has an interest or has a base of commercial building owner clients that may find benefit in the for the reasons we just described, the 100% for retrofit financing and longer term, are more than welcome to engage with us, become a registered capital provider, and serve their building owners by adding CPACE to their lineup.
Great. Thanks for that, Brian. I'll just add from the county's perspective that, we were, really intentional and thoughtful about the ordinance update, and then also, hoping to have additional outreach and marketing and sort of, discussing this program benefits. And this is really the first of what we see as a series of spreading sort of the news about the update, the benefits, and this both to the lending community plus eligible buildings, and so really trying to expand the program's growth as much as we can, realizing that this can be a really powerful and impactful tool to meet our goals related to energy efficiency and climate action. So really trying to leverage this as much as we can moving forward.
Yeah, perhaps another comment on that theme, Steve. And I mentioned earlier, really since the run up in interest rates and commercial property and the challenge that developers face to round out their financing plans, we've seen PACE come into that scenario, as I described, as a compelling solution. And one of the byproducts of that is many of the CPACE specialty capital providers have really concentrated on those large new construction projects, and many of them at this juncture would have minimum loan amounts of 2 million, 5 million, or maybe even 10 million or more. And on one hand, that's been a benefit for the industry in terms of the amount of financing and the large project impact that the industry can have. On the other hand, it's been a challenge because those same lenders have raised their loan minimums, and that's made it more challenging to find participating lenders for small retrofit projects. So there, think, I mentioned earlier, the most frequent opportunity that we encounter is small to mid-sized building owners who are at the HVAC equipment end of life event. And, although that might only be several $100,000, which to one of those large project lenders is a small amount, but to the small building owner, it's a big nut to cover, and they often don't have the capital budget available to support it. And so we are out there on a regular basis, engaging with community banks, regional banks, and encouraging them to adopt CPACE, again, for the benefits that we've already outlined here today, which can be quite compelling to their business banking clients that happen to own commercial buildings. So that's an ongoing effort. Those of you on today's call that have relationships with those lenders we very much would look forward to engaging with them. But it's a big need. The retrofit market is a big need, and that's small to mid-sized space, and that's currently the area that's most underserved, where the benefits of PACE can go a long way to supporting that community.
Great. No, I appreciate that, Brian. I think that's well said, and I think a great theme that we're looking to engage with the CPACE program we have, and with lenders and sort of building owners, and so we're planning at the county level to keep the conversation going and sort of really leverage the opportunity for CPACE. And so not seeing any additional questions in the chat, just wanted to thank everyone for joining. Please reach out to Brian and myself if you have any additional questions, any potential collaboration opportunities, or just additional information. And we really just thank you for your time today, and looking forward to continuing to find opportunities to grow LEAD in Arlington. So thank you all. Appreciate the time today, and we hope to keep in touch. So thanks all. Appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day.
Talk to y'all later. Yep, bye.
Bye.